Hey, 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 what's up, Crown Nation? Welcome to Rock the Crown.
How y'all doing today? We are so excited to come to you with episode 12 for our fifth season. We're coming to near an end already. And so we've got some really exciting things to share today that I'm sure will benefit many people. But first, we want to introduce ourselves. Of course, this is Naima, one of the queens, and then I'm Nefertari. And our special guest is Hadia. She is founder and a clinical director of Jana Holistic Health. She specializes in counseling. She does services for children, family, adults, and she's been doing this for over 5 years now. She's had 5 years experience and training in this, and so we're going to be hearing from her today on a lot of wealth of information. She holds a BS in psychology and an MS in clinical mental health. Her specialties include community health education, trauma recovery, coping with skills, depression, anxiety, identity development. I mean, like, she's just got everything covered, right? So
Right, love it.
cannot wait to hear. And she's looking so pretty in her cream today.
Yes, all right, love that.
Topping it off. And so, mental health and wellness, this is our topic for today. Okay. And so we're going to kind of get into Hadia. Welcome. We welcome you.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Like, wow, I'm with the celebrities.
Oh, we love that.
Yes, we're
Wow.
glad to hear you, to have you here with us.
Yes, happy to be here.
So, as you know, it is Mental Health Month. This is so befitting because when we were actually planning this season out, we weren't even thinking about this as being Mental Health Month, right? And last week we talked about knowing basically the boiling frog syndrome story, which is also mental health. And so now we're just rolling back into another week of mental health. So this is really, really great. We want to go basically just start off. Can you start us off with what is mental health?
Yeah, that's such a loaded question. And um, it says so many layers to it, honestly. Usually it's used as like a blanketed term for like how you're doing in general. And it's really only one part of the many, many layers of health. So mental health specifically is in regards to your mental functioning, your ability to focus, and your memory, and um, it, even being able to speak or data processing, your nervous system, anything that's dealing with like your mind functioning and helping you through the day. So that's the actual term of mental health.
Okay. And I think that sometimes people may also think of mental health as like, as you were saying, like how you're doing. So if somebody is not feeling well, they're just like, oh, my mental health is not on point
Mhm.
today. But it's so much more, as you said, deeper than that. And we're going to just kind of dig deep into that. And we're also want to talk about the misconceptions of mental health. But let's start from the top.
Yeah. Um, so I guess the when it comes to mental health, the whole thing started off as what was the obvious signs that you could see from a person who is struggling with mental health. And typically those were like the very telltale signs. Like if you have someone who just simply can't function in the day, they're coming to work and they can't seem to get through the day and they're losing track of, their duties or responsibilities. And then they saw even more severe situations where people would have difficulties communicating or forming sentences and having personal relationships. So originally, mental health was a way to classify people who had difficulty getting through day-to-day life. The issue with that was that that's who doesn't have difficulty getting through day-to-day life sometimes.
Right.
It's just a matter of being stuck in that mode. Yeah, I was gonna say, when people
Exactly.
hear mental health, they automatically think somebody with issues, but we all have to deal with mental health. Like,
Every
and
single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mental health is like breathing. Like you have to breathe, and your mental health is going to fluctuate period. Like it happens every single day, both consciously and unconsciously. So yeah, that's super important.
Exactly. And that's kind of how we found this shift into incorporating the gray area. No one is well 100% of the time. That's just not, it's not a thing.
Say that again.
Yeah, like legit, like nobody. You can meditate it and veggie it all day. There's still going to be a day where you're not showing up 100%.
This is
Right.
true.
So in the field and in the health field in general, in our culture in general, we started to realize, oh snap, like we're human. Go figure. Like I'm not going to be well all the time. And that doesn't mean that I have a severe diagnosis just because I'm having a day or a couple days or a couple months.
Right.
I'm going through a hard time right now. So that was a huge deal, seeing this shift in the way we talk about mental health. So it's a beautiful thing that this changed.
So when oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Neff. I'm just talking.
Oh no, I was just going to say, so as far as mindset and the perception of mental health, like how would you kind of describe some of those things as far as your well-being?
Sure. So like the whole shift that has happened in our culture really has helped people recognize and draw attention to their wellness. So we went from this illness idea like, oh, I'm unwell, I'm sick, there's something wrong with me. If I can't get through the day 100% of the time, something's wrong with me. Now the perception is I might not have a good day today, but there's tomorrow. There's like this silver lining of hope that they wrap around the struggles that we face every day. And it's that there's tomorrow. So instead of thinking something's wrong with me, that mind state shifts into I'm improving, I'm growing, I'm getting better. I had a challenge today. It's the languaging, it's the perception, it's the mind state of how you see yourself and your health. That's really what triggers healing. If you're stuck in a mindset of I'm sick, you're going to be sick.
Right.
You know, so it's mindset is a huge precursor to health. Huge.
Mindset is huge for a lot of things you do in life, huh? Set your mind to it, you can do it.
That's right.
What did my mom say last week about you have to set your mind before you can even set the goal?
Yes.
You don't have the mind to want to fulfill the goal. It doesn't matter. You can write a goal down all you want to. So check mark for Nora from last week.
Mom, she be knowing. Mom always knows.
Okay, Mom, you know that. Okay, I love that part. Okay, so I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of the stigma of mental health. So how people really are saying, I just need to take a mental health day, right? And how it's becoming almost like a fad type culture instead of people really, excuse me, owning up to their real mental health. Like, no, girl, a mental health day isn't like, I don't feel good, so I'm gonna stay at home and go shopping or eat some popcorn and things like that. Talk about that stigma that's kind of happening in the society right now.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, I guess, because on one hand, a mental health day can look like whatever it needs to look like for you. So if that looks like a spa day, by all means, but too much of anything is counterproductive. So if you're face masking your problems away, that's not really going to get you anywhere. So at some point, you have to incorporate all these different tools into the process of keeping yourself healthy and well. That's not always going to look like I'm just going to lounge around. It's going to look like doing some actual work a lot of the time. So it's the self-care culture. I'm self-caring today. It's good. It is good, but I do definitely see a lot of ways that it can kind of be a band-aid for what might really be happening for somebody. So just being aware, like it's not a pacifier.
Oh yeah, that's a big deal. Okay, so what about can you talk to the specifics about mental facilities and functioning, like focus, memory, data processing, things like that? Because I think sometimes, and the nervous system, because again, I know that there's one thing that happens. I know some friends of mine that have sons, and my son used to do this. Whenever they got nervous, they would smile a lot, and they would laugh. And so people would be like, "It's not funny." But what they don't realize is that that was the person's way of dealing with whatever trauma is happening at the time, or whatever situation is happening at the time. So it's not like they're laughing or smiling as if it's not serious, but that's their coping mechanism. And so sometimes people misread signs even from people when they're having even a mental breakdown or a mental disconnect. And so kind of talk to a little bit about some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So mental health became the term to use when it's talking about our functioning, our life functioning, because those faculties are some of the immediate signs of that something might be going on other levels. So someone who's nervous, and when they get nervous they smile, obviously other people are going to take that in a different way than maybe they mean it. But that's one of the reasons it's so important for us to notice patterns and notice the signs when we, with our loved ones, with our friends, with ourselves. I know there are have days where I just can't seem to quite focus as well as I can on other days, where I might find myself walking in circles in the kitchen and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. But those are just, it's a fluctuation. But noticing those patterns and those symptoms in things like memory, in things like how are you retaining information? Are you forgetting things often? How is your nervous system? That's a humongous telltale sign. Our brain is literally an electrical engine firing signals all day, even when we're asleep, all day. When we have a shortage or something is off, you can literally feel that in your body. So all of these connections, it's all good. That's like the next thing I want to talk about. Just my favorite thing, just the connectedness of all of these functions, your nervous system and how that affects your emotions and how that affects your physical. But the mental health is the easy way to tell if someone's off or starting to get off, or if you feel off. So yeah.
So go ahead and dig into that.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite topic ever. Oh my gosh, can y'all tell or what?
Yeah, let's do it. I love it.
Yeah, so specifically the nervous system is so interesting because it's connected to our physical bodies, obviously, right? But when you think about electricity, your brain is firing these signals in your bodies. It's going to make your muscles jerk. It's going to make your body tight. It's going to make your body relax. So we started the live off listening to some very relaxing music. Imagine if we had like some drums playing, all of that is sending those signals. So if you think about anything outside, any stimulation we get into our brains is going to affect our bodies. Smell, any of our senses, smell, sight, touch. Our brain is processing that constantly. And it affects how our body responds to it. The way our body responds to it can affect how we feel. Someone comes up to me and they, squeeze my arm, I'm going to be like, oh, wow. I'm going to have a response physically and emotionally, depending on who's touching me, right? So,
Right.
so the interconnectedness of all these systems is so beautiful. It's miraculous, honestly. And I think my biggest hang up with the health field in my profession is that they try to separate these pieces. And now when they say mental health, that's my whole being. Absolutely not. I'm emotional, I'm spiritual, I'm physical, all of these different layers. So when you're thinking about mental health, you want to broaden that and to see what other pieces it's connected to. So, and it's non-linear. Like sometimes you're going to be in all these different areas, physical, emotional, spiritual. You're going to need to be playing around in all those places. So it's a beautiful thing. It is.
Yeah. What also is something else that's really interesting is that next week we're talking about the body keeps the score. And so that's a book. Of course,
Amazing.
it's going to be one of our last books for our book club. But the body keeping the score, and I know that in the beginning of that, it talks about how, like, your body begins to memorize
Mhm.
all of these basically pathways, right? So when you start thinking about if someone is yelling, your body memorizes the reaction to it. And so whenever you hear someone yelling, that's what your body does, right? So it really takes a lot to um, disconnect those connectors after they have been connected. And so
Mhm.
smells, even you had a bad experience where someone maybe was beating you up or something, and they had on what is that? Old Spice.
Mhm.
Old Spice will be a no for you, right?
Yes.
You
We
know,
went
because
through with
as
the
soon as
Old
you
Spice.
smell it, yeah, you would remember, and the
Mhm.
body would say, "Wait a minute, there's some Old Spice around here. Do we need to automatically begin to lift up those, and the endorphin, though all of those adrenals, in order to survive and to protect ourselves?"
Mhm.
And what we've also found, of course, is that women, we are all, our adrenals are always on high, and so we just run out all the time. So can you talk to us about how we can, some tips, just to maintain focus, maintain disconnecting some of those negative connectors that are associated with either the nervous system. Like, if you know that someone says, I know one thing that used to be really bad for me is when someone would say, "We need to talk."
Mm.
I
Oh
think everyone's trigger.
my God. My
I
stomach would
know.
start churning and I would get butterflies, and I literally would be sick to my stomach, and it would be like, "Girl, what t-shirt do you think I should wear?" And so I'm like, I've been waiting hours upon hours, going through
For you
all
to
this
ask me that.
time for you to ask me that, but it comes from trauma. So of course those
Yeah.
were experiences that I had, and I really had to learn how to dial it all the way back. Like, whenever I hear that now, I have to tell myself, "You're okay.
Mhm.
You're okay. It's okay. It's not anything that is traumatic." You know what I'm saying? Like, and if it is, you just have to make a plan, but you have to be, open to receive. Man, that word right there is not a good word for me.
You're working on that one.
Okay.
So what
Yeah.
would you so what would you say about that, Hadia?
Oh, so that goes a lot into trauma recovery.
Mm.
And if you are, my theory is that if you are alive on this earth, you have experienced trauma at some point in your life. It's a
Mhm.
part of the human experience. And some have more severe trauma than others. So learning how to restructure, reconnect, and basically it's like reprogramming yourself
Mhm.
and resetting behaviors and resetting your body, resetting your mind. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's absolutely 1000% possible. And so the first thing that I would say for anyone who was, wanting to maybe, reconnect or redirect some patterns or behaviors or even thoughts or emotions, um, first you have to definitely be aware of it. Awareness is such a huge thing.
Mhm.
And once you're aware of it, then you can do something about it. And they say, name it to tame it. Name it, call it
Oh,
out,
I
Name
call it,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, call it out of the dark. And then it makes it a lot less scary because once you
Mm.
have its name, you can Google it and you can research it and you can learn about it. And once you do that, you just take small steps, small steps. A lot of people really bite off a lot more than they are prepared for, or maybe they feel like it's a very, very scary thing. And so they don't take any steps at all.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just start very, very small. Even something as small as what you just said, Naima, is when you have a reaction, literally change that narrative in that moment. I'm okay, I'm safe.
Mhm.
That's a huge thing. If you do that enough, your brain pathways literally rewire themselves. It's miraculous. We kind of have
Yeah, that's
superpowers.
beautiful. Yeah, yeah. People
Mhm.
don't realize that's the change that's necessary.
Absolutely. And it's really the first step. It is.
So would that kind of fall under needing to name your emotion? Would that
It can. It
Mhm.
can. Whatever it is. So there's four. main, I guess, faculties or categories of human functioning. So there's mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to awareness, one of the things I do is I check in. Checking in is pausing for however many seconds or minutes. Which area right now is needing attention? Where am I feeling off at? Is the first thing. Stop, just pause, and check in any of those four areas. And then once you're able to check in, then you name what it is. I'm hungry. Maybe I need some water. Maybe, or you can name your emotion and say, I feel a little sad. But the first thing is either one of those four things. I find that helps people kind of categorize and bracket the mess of life. It's like, where is it coming from? It's going to be one of those four areas.
As you were talking, it made me think about like some days, I feel like with me, sometimes I have to actually make an announcement, like how I feel about something or
Yes.
what I'm dealing with, or it might be like, just give me some space because I'm dealing with some emotions right now. That's this, or that. Or even if it's like, I just need to, I'm very tired. I need to take a nap. If you guys could give me just this much time. So I find that sometimes when you are connecting to whatever that feeling of emotion is, for me, that when I check in with that I have to, if there's people around me, just so they know what kind of space I'm in, that I'm sharing, that this is what I'm dealing with right now. So this is what.
Absolutely. And that's why that awareness is this, like, the secret ingredient. If you don't know what's going on, of course, no one else is going to know what's going on.
Right.
So naming it, being able to vocalize it, that's like next level of mental health care. So you are okay.
I love that.
Okay.
How do you help excuse me, how do you help people when you say, okay, I've named this emotion, I'm sharing it with others around me, and others are not respecting what you're saying regarding your state? How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So that's boundary setting, which is kind of like your next level. Once you discover yourself and like, this is me, this is who I am. These are my edges, these are my curves, this is me. There's someone else next to me now, and they seem to have an issue with me being me. And that's where you have to draw those boundaries. And that's a whole thing in itself. There's hard boundaries and there's soft boundaries. Family and friends and people that are close to us, even strangers, everyone's going to have a boundary from me. It just depends on where I'm needing to set that line. But just accept that you are always going to have to set a line with another human. And it's a healthy thing to do. Very, very healthy.
How do people set boundaries? I was listening to a talk show a long time ago, and a young girl was talking to an older woman, and she was like, you know what? I think that Black people don't set boundaries, and that's our problem. She was like, no, 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 no. Black people set boundaries. When your auntie said, don't sit on that couch, sit on that plastic, that's setting a boundary. Okay. She's like, we Black people have always set boundaries. It's how you interpret the boundary. And but oftentimes people can set boundaries in some areas of their life, but not boundaries in other areas. So how can someone be able to um, build that muscle to set the boundaries in the areas where they're needing the most boundary setting?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's usually a conflict of interest in those situations. It's
Mm,
usually a me or them type of situation. And it's about where you put most of your importance and what do you prioritize.
mm,
If and the severity. So some people, they might get on your nerves, and all right, I'll let you get on my nerves. Like, maybe your kids or something, fine. But if it's to the point where it's taking away from your health and your well-being,
mhm.
you have to choose you. It's almost like it's not really beneficial to anyone for you to do anything else. So it's usually a conflict of interest when it comes to those decisions, and it's you have to decide, how serious is this to me? Are they getting on my nerves that bad, or can I let it slide? Can I deal with it? Or is this really something that's really bothering me to the point where I'm up at night, to the point where I'm angry all the time? anything that's severe where it's impeding on your functioning, you need to make a boundary and pick a side, your side or their side. So
We had one of our nice nice was saying basically it is a boundary. Don't sit on that couch.
yeah.
Especially remember when your auntie or grandma was like, "Don't sit on my white couch with them jeans."
She didn't say don't sit. She said don't sat. Don't sat on that couch.
Right, that's right. I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, so you want to continue on with the interconnectedness of the holistic approach and the interconnectedness of basically the total well-being. What is that?
Yeah, so it's just like we kind of talked about, it's zooming out a little bit. Um, you cannot, if you look at just the one part of yourself, you're gonna miss the amazingness of the rest of who you are. And you're gonna miss out on areas where you can improve, where you can
Mhm.
grow. So you don't want to focus so much on just one area and not take into account your strengths in other areas. You don't want to focus just on this one area that you're glowing and not take into account the areas where you can grow. So a lot of times a client, all the time, a client might come in and they'll say, I'm having this problem. And I ask like a completely opposite question to what they're thinking, but it's usually because that thing is either connected to what's happening for them or it's
Mm,
something that they didn't even consider and
mhm,
they just didn't see it. They're
mhm,
looking too close at this one problem and they're
mhm,
not seeing the big picture. So that's one of the beautiful things about having supports, whether it's counseling, a therapist, a friend, your family, a spouse. There are mirrors for us and help us to see ourselves more clear. And so it's just taking into account you as an entire person. You're not just your emotions or your feelings. You're not just your body either. You're not just your mind and your ability to sit and work hours at a time. You're all of those things
mhm.
all the time, all at once. And that's daunting. It's kind of intimidating.
I love that.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
So under the wellness tips, you have something listed for using your feeling wheel,
Hmm.
your emotional vocabulary. Talk
Mm.
about that.
Yeah, I love this. Talk about this really hard.
Yes. Oh, goodness. So, a lot of times, when we don't learn the vocabulary of how to express ourselves,
Mhm.
there's no way that we're able to fully express what we're feeling.
Mhm.
And so,
Start acting out instead of speaking, huh?
yeah, I work a lot with children, and of course, a young child, their parents will tell me that they're acting out or they're having all these behaviors, and I'm like, sure, probably because they don't know how to tell you what they're feeling. The only
Mhm.
thing they know to do is to throw their toy as hard as they can.
Mhm.
They're probably angry, though. We could probably take that good guess, right? And so a lot of times I'll bring in my feelings wheel, and it's a wheel literally that has I don't even know how many they put on there, but it's so many emotions in this wheel. On the
Mhm.
inside you'll have your core feelings:
Mhm.
angry, sad, um, disgusted, happy, joyful. And then to each one, it'll branch out farther and farther in more detail and bigger words to express those feelings: frustrated, annoyed, or I'm elated, I'm excited, or I'm jealous, or so many
Mhm.
words
Yeah.
outside of just the main ones we use all the time.
Mhm.
Mm.
And so
Mhm.
when you're able to name it, to tame it again, and you're so much more clear and articulate with for yourself and for others, saying I'm annoyed sounds different than saying I'm angry.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
different. So
Mhm.
being able to be clear help improves our interpersonal relationships, clarifies what's happening for us. It's one of my favorite things to use. I use it pretty much with everybody. one of my first therapy sessions, my counselor, I walked in and she said, "You can go to the feelings wheel." And I was like, "Oh, I'm an adult though."
I know that's real. And that really goes to like emotional intelligence, like things that people are still struggling with in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Like they don't know how to express themselves. And so those connective tissues of anger and frustration is still there. And they're wondering why their life won't change. It's the same connected stuff, honey.
Literally patterns over and over and over again. And it's a wonder. I just love this stuff because it's amazing to witness. When you find yourself stuck in these repeat situations, it's almost like every day you're waking up in the same thing. I met a new person, but the same thing is happening. How? Why? Because literally down to your cells in your brain is still doing the same exact thing.
And so you just want to shake yourself.
Take it out, literally. I do that in session too. Sometimes we come in and we just like go crazy, releasing those muscles, letting that blood flow to the brain to get those neural pathways electrified. So many things. We could be here all day, honestly.
Okay.
This sounds like a daily practice people should do, looking in the mirror every morning.
They should. They should. And they absolutely should. Affirmations are a huge, wonderful, beautiful way to reconstruct, using words to reprocess. Think about think about if you heard someone say, "You are so smart." Every day you woke up, somebody said that to you. Or, "You are so beautiful. You are so kind." If I hear that every day, you better believe by the end of the week, I'm going to be walking, talking it, living it. I will be this beautiful, smart, amazing person.
Yes.
And it can start with yourself. Sometimes we all, I mean, I know acknowledgement is like the natural nature of the human being, but if you don't acknowledge yourself, how are you can often get tripped up in waiting for the acknowledgement of others. And sometimes you're not going to get it.
Absolutely.
Right. That's why she said starting in the mirror in the morning.
That's
Say
right. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That inner dialogue it's a telltale.
That's your best friend, really.
Yeah, honestly, you know you are the expert on your life. I tell my clients that a lot. You know more about what's happening for you than I do. It's all about your level of awareness of what's happening for you. I'm just here to listen and tell you what I see and what I hear, which is different. So it's very
Well, because you just said that, are you considered a counselor or a therapist?
They're really interchangeable. The terms changed over time, but the actual profession is the counseling profession. So the professional term is a counselor, but people say therapist, counselor, someone that helps you heal, someone that gives you counsel, gives you therapy. Same nature, but
okay.
So you know what I thought about, how you have a hairstylist and then you also have the hairstylist to go to the hairstylist to get her hair done. So, I heard you speaking earlier and you said my counselor,
oh yes,
which means like you give this counsel to people. This is the work that you do, but then you also go and take care of yourself when needed. And so I think that that's something that's really important. And I think us, especially as African Americans, sometimes we feel like if we have to sit in that chair and sit and talk to someone that there's seriously something wrong with us, but we don't have to really wait till we get to that point to seek counsel. In fact, it's almost like, a part of your health and well-being that you should kind of find this as a regular practice. I don't know. For some people, maybe once a quarter. What do you think about that?
1000%. The same way you go to the doctor twice a year, go see a therapist twice a year. If there's nothing critically wrong, great, wonderful. But I guarantee you it will benefit you just to sit in front of somebody that is not going to judge you from whatever you say and just say whatever you want to say. They don't know any of the people that you're talking about.
Right?
They don't have any of their numbers. Like it's so therapeutic just to talk to somebody, just to get a second opinion. And even if it's not as a counselor, even if it's not a counselor or not a therapist, it can be your imam. It can be your spouse. You guys can do check-ins, whatever. But it's so, so important to find a space where you check in in all of these areas, the
Yes.
same way you would go to a doctor and they give you a full checkup. The
Mhm. Absolutely.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. I love that.
Yes.
Okay, what about burnout and boredom?
Yeah, so that kind of goes into the so when I was thinking about, because it's not enough to say, oh, these are the places that everyone should consider, paying attention to.
Hmm.
You want to know, how can I address these areas? So for the mental health, if you consider it being like this engine that's running, 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 running all the time,
Hmm.
you want to find a nice, sweet balance that's sustainable. So you
Mm.
don't want to overstimulate yourself so much to the point where you're burning out and you're short fused by before lunch even happens, you're at the end of your rope.
Mhm.
You also don't want to go through your whole day understimulated either, with not feeling motivated, not feeling enthused about what you're doing. And that's with anything you're doing. So finding that sweet spot really allows you to not keeps your life energy at a healthy rate. So you don't want to give too much, but
Hmm.
you also don't want to just have it build up either. So burning out, you see that a lot with people that are very highly ambitious and motivated, have a million and one things happening all the time.
Hmm.
Typically they develop, issues with anxiety, have a lot of problems with muscle tension and body aches, and emotionally they are typically very short fused. Um, and that can get so much so to the point where they're running on this high energy and they have a crash. And
Mhm.
that's the burnout portion, that
Hmm.
that crash where they can't. And so on the flip side, an individual who is feeling way less motivated, doesn't have as much going on, you typically see that they have a lot more depressive type symptoms that come up, feeling like they don't really have a purpose, or what am I doing every day? I don't want to do anything today. And so that sweet spot of sometimes not doing anything, sometimes doing a lot, keeps you in that balance. With any of these areas, balance is so, so important. So important.
Hmm.
So, you said something earlier, and then you just to hearing the word depression, because you talked about how we all kind of go through things on a day-to-day basis. We have our highs and our lows, and the difference between someone who has a form of depression, to me, it's like they're staying in this position like longer, where they can't like dig themselves out, and they need a little help with that. What would you say to a person, to our listeners, when you think about family members or close friends, when you see this and maybe they don't really see it or know it, they cannot identify it?
Mhm.
How would you describe it, for them to see that in their loved ones and how to help them to
Yeah.
get on the right track?
Hmm.
Yeah. Typically, and none of this is one size fits all.
Mhm.
Health shows up differently for everybody. The way people express it is different for everybody.
Right.
So it's never going to be exactly what you think, but typically if you notice someone is behaving differently than the way they usually behave, or even noticeably different than the way, quote, quote, most people behave. And that's a
Mhm.
strong quote because,
Right.
we cannot blanket everyone to behave one way, but
Right.
typically you want to look for those patterns of
Mhm.
behavior. Um, there are people who have been depressed for their entire lives,
Mm.
and their family and friends only know them in that state. So they wouldn't notice that they're depressed because that's how they've known them for so long.
Mm.
And so
That's
that's a really, really tricky moment to try to
yeah.
decipher. But typically, if you notice someone is often isolating by themselves, they don't want to interact, their mood seems very, very melancholy, very just flat.
Hmm.
Um, even if it's the opposite in a lot of men, it shows up the opposite of that. They have more anger, is how depression will be expressed. Angry outbursts. They could have substance use is also another tell. Um, those are some of the major ones. Changes in eating, sleeping habits, sleeping often.
Yeah.
All of those are huge telltales. Someone that's always tired. You shouldn't always be tired. That's not a good sign. Even if they sleep, they still wake up and they're still tired. So it's your body trying to overcompensate for the low energy.
Yes.
So those are all typical things that you can look out for when you're looking for those signs. But again, checking in with each other and with yourself is the biggest preventative.
And when you're talking about checking in, I think that you were well, we haven't mentioned it, but tending to the basic needs first, which is basically, are you hungry, thirsty, and sleepy? And I know that when people are going through depression, some people eat a lot when they're depressed. And then some people don't eat at all. Right? Some people sleep a lot. And I know that for myself, whenever I'm mentally overload, I get sleepy. I'm like, I'm about to check out. I'm going night night. Okay.
At this insane time, that's not usual bedtime.
Exactly, right? It's like, okay, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I need a nap, and it doesn't turn into a nap; it turns into night night. Okay, just because it's so much, right? So, and then of course, I have a tendency I won't eat. Like, have you eaten? No, since when? Yesterday, like right? But again, talk to us about how people need to still, even if you don't feel like eating, even if you don't feel thirsty, even if you don't feel like, even if you feel over sleepy, how can people still maintain those needs of themselves?
Yes, absolutely. So that's honestly us. That should be the fifth category. Like that should be the top category, and then all these other faculties are underneath it. Your basic needs. If you are any of those three things, hungry, thirsty, or sleepy, everything else is going to be affected by that. You have to tend to those very, very basic things. You'd be surprised how much your mood will change if you take a sip of water. It's miraculous. That's like, it's really, really amazing.
Yeah, you get an attitude when you're hungry.
You see what I'm saying?
Angry.
It's all connected. Like when you're sleepy, you're cranky.
Yes.
You need a nap. So if you're not taking care of those basic needs, it's nothing else is really gonna flow right. So even if you don't feel like it, there's again those small steps, huge, huge, huge difference. There was so we do a practice during when I'm with my clients, and it's setting goals that are SMART goals. They're easy to do. They are not going to take up too much time. They make sense. I'm not, if you come into my office and say, hey, I have not eaten healthy or eaten really anything in the last 3 days, I'm not going to go say, you need to go home right now, go to the grocery store, buy this, and this, go home, cook, and eat a meal. That's not the best thing to do. You tell them, say, hey, why don't we start with some soup? We can have some soup, something easy, simple, palatable. You don't have to do any chewing. Nobody wants to do anything when they don't feel like doing anything. You know,
I didn't even think about that part.
I didn't either.
it's literally down to that specific.
Right now, if you're depressed,
I don't even want to chew. I don't want to do anything. People miss that when people say that anything.
Wow.
I didn't even think about that. That's so funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's very like, wow, yeah, that didn't register.
Yes, it's very, very real. So a lot of times people they reject change and help because it's too extreme in that moment. The medicine is too strong. They need, a children's tablet, even with a chewable, instead of giving them like the full shot in the leg. That's too much. So, drink a smoothie, go to Smoothie King, or don't DoorDash it, whatever your tell someone to make it for you. Drink some tea, instead of, if you're having trouble with sleep, start by taking a nap. Not even taking a nap, because even that is almost like I can't pause from my work to take a nap. How about we just scoot back from the desk? Just take a break. Put our head down for a moment. So those small steps really, really is what helps you get to the goal. The goal is very daunting. It's very,
right.
It's too big at the moment. But
When you said put your head down, it's kind of like in preschool.
it's
Once you put the head down, it's over with. The next right?
All you gotta do is get the baby down. That's it. When is that and they out?
I love that. People like, I can't take a nap. Put that head down.
Put your head down, but you do nap.
I love that. One last thing before we close out, I wanted you to talk about identify physical pain, tension, and stress points that people really need to focus on for wellness tips as well.
Absolutely. Body scans. They have a lot of these things on YouTube now. I'm all for the self-care movement. It can be tricky, but I'm personally in favor. YouTube, they have apps now. Like they done made it the culture apparently.
Okay, I love it.
For it. It's fine with me.
Right.
But YouTube has great videos where you can do body scans. There's guided meditations there. And a body scan is just simply it requires stillness. And you be still and just sit back. And
Are we about to do it right now? Okay, hold on.
Sure, just a small demonstration. So when you're doing a body scan, you want to be in a comfortable position. And you're going to start with either the top of the head or the bottom of the feet, the most extreme parts. And we can start with our feet. So let's just say, if you think about your toes, how are they feeling? Tell them to relax. Are they okay? Do you feel any pain there, any tension? Before you move on from that area, relax that part of the area. Use your mind, say relax. Internally, of course. In your mind, tell that part of your body to relax. Then you move on to the legs. Address your legs. Tell your legs to relax. Are they relaxing when you give this command? And you do this exercise with each part of your body, to the hips, to the stomach area, to the shoulders, to the chest, to the neck, all the way till you get back to the top. And the point of this is you'll notice certain areas may not respond to the command, even though you give it. You might say, okay, shoulders relax, yet you still feel tense there. That's a way that you can check in with your body and see where you need to, part that you need to address. You might need a massage there to massage that out. I do all the time. The right side of my body, I'm always massaging it because that's just where I hold tension. And so it's constant revisiting, constant turning to yourself and checking in as much as you need to, as often as you need to, with no remorse.
Right. Listen, as you was talking, I was like, I think I had it down when you started with the toes.
Yes, right. You know what I'm saying?
But when I got to the legs, I don't know. I was like, is it doing anything?
I know. And it might not, but
that was quick. I was like, okay, so there's an issue with the legs. And the legs are not listening.
Yeah, maybe.
They said, no, girl, we're not relaxing, okay?
Tell you might feel the need to be up all the time, doing something all the time, moving all the time.
That's me.
Body keeps the score.
It's going to be so exciting. I hope that you come back. We may have to have you back next week so that when we do the book, we can talk about the book, because the book next week is going to be so essential. The body keeps the score. And I think the part that you love so much about it is the miraculous part, because this is what the book is talking about, how miraculous the body is when it comes to, hey, when people are always like, oh, I feel good. No, baby, your body is saying, no, girl, you are all the way tore up. And we don't want to focus on like the negativity of it. But again, when you were 16 years old and you were stressed out or whatever you did, you fell off your bike and you never healed that arm. And your arm, every time you walk now, it doesn't walk. It stops midway, right? Which means that you're not doing a full stride. Like all of this stuff connects. And then we wonder why dis-ease comes in. So, all of the disease that we start having, especially as women, like, yeah, we can cure some of these things if we know about our bodies, if we can release all of this tension, this stuff. We had once, I don't know, do you remember, Hadia, when we were doing the Sisters United and they were doing the yoni?
Yes.
Okay, honey, that was so powerful, right?
Oh my goodness.
I know. You remember that, Neff?
Yes.
And people don't really realize like how much they've held in their womb that needs to be released. And even when we're talking about like, hey, have you talked to your womb today? Have you rubbed your womb today? Like all these different things. Have you rubbed your arm? Like, girl, are you okay? Are you okay?
Are you all right?
Right. You stressed out. What you need?
Even my eyes.
Right. I love that. I love that. So hopefully you have a website we can share with the audience today.
Yeah, so you guys can contact with me on Facebook, Jana Holistic Health on Facebook, and on Instagram, Jana Holistic Health on there as well. Reach out. And of course, these lovely ladies have my information also, so feel free to share it.
And spell that for them if you don't mind. I know you spell Jann.
Jannah, and holistic is HOLISTIC health.
Excellent. And Neff, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, these people, they feel.
I know, right?
I'm like, put it up on the screen.
Okay. Yes.
Well, before we go, recharging and resetting, just something real quick on that meditation, prayer, just like to sum it up,
Yeah, that's actually that's the best way to reset all of these areas. So there is, without getting too deep, to leaving everybody with a cliffhanger. They're gonna be so upset if I leave them with a little piece, then I'll give them the rest. But
we have to go into that next week too, huh?
At some point, because that's a whole thing. But there is a connected collective energy that we share with everything in the entire creation.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are able to tap in, you tap out of what's happening on the day to day. You tap out of your responsibilities. You tap out of your roles and all these different hats. Take all of that off, and you find a space within you that is pure source. It's pure energy. There's no thoughts about how you look. There's no thoughts about if I'm doing things right. It's just being the energy that you are, the soul, the spirit that you are. When you're able to tap out of all the things in the physical and sit with that energy, it has a power to it that is almost like plugging into an outlet. It has the ability to recharge your cellular structure, your bones, your emotions, your heart, all of those things. And it's why now on the Western side, we want to meditate so much.
Right.
They've been meditating for thousands of years.
Right.
Neither here nor there. Meditation and prayer is one of the ways we can tap into that source of energy within ourselves. And it can look like something as simple as just pulling back from your chair, from your desk, walking into the bathroom or your nearest escape route from everything and everyone, leaning against a wall, sitting on the floor, whatever, closing your eyes, taking the biggest breath you can, releasing it, and just being still. You can sit in that for as long as you need to. And that is how you total recharge and total reset. Sounds easier, but practice.
Oh yeah, practice makes perfect. Thank you so much, Hadia, for joining us today. And again, we hope that you join us next week. We want to make sure that the audience understands that next week we will be talking about The Body Keeps the Score, the book. If you haven't purchased it, you can still get it on Kindle. You can go to Amazon, reading thing. What is that?
On the Kindle?
No, what's the Amazon?
What, prom? I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
one
so
of
many
those. You know where the
plans.
reading part, right? I'm brain fog. Okay, but yeah, definitely you can download it and listen to the Audible. It is 8 hours. So if you think about, hey, I want to read this book before next week, just think about doing an hour and a half or 2 hours for the next 4 to 5 days, just to kind of like focus on like, hey, let's talk about this body keeps the score thing. I don't have to read it, but I can listen to it. So much more easier. And it's going to be a juicy conversation. And I'm hoping that everyone has their jeans and their t-shirt on, because we are going to have to disconnect some stuff. Okay. It's going to be
Okay.
some work happening next week. So yes, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Crown Nation, for always showing up for us as you do always. We love you. We love you. We love you. And again, remember to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram. And so until next week, we hope that you will join us for our last book of the season, The Body Keeps the Score. Until then, we'll see you all. Peace out.
Thank you for
Be
being here.
well, everybody. Be
Absolutely.
well.